right, folks. So it's time for another drive chat. Um, so pardon me as I'm pulling back onto the road. So I'm in Live Oak, Florida. I was down in Steinhatchee, just south of Perry, looking at a Wander Lodge, and I did a walk around video with it, but unfortunately that bus is just not for me. There's just a little bit too much going on. I think it would be a fantastic bus for someone that's in the Florida, Georgia, Alabama region. Um, Really, I think you need to recover the bus and have it towed. I think it needs to be towed out of there. It has a 3208 turbo motor. It was apparently modified by Bluebird. It's a January 1979 coach, and I don't know when it was modified. Didn't get that far. Um, the issues for me, it needed new tires. Every single one of these coaches needs new tires. It had a whole bunch of rodent droppings, probably flying squirrel is what it looked like in the front driver's area. The brakes were caged. It's not a big deal to uncage them, but you don't cage the brakes if it runs. Um, the dipstick was missing. It's a special dipstick because the it's accessed by the radiator cap, and again, it's just too much to try and fabricate a custom dipstick in the field. It looks like a cable style dipstick, and it would have been specific to that engine. Um, One of the things that was really frustrating for me is somebody had shot out both windshields. You know, that didn't show up in the pictures. I wasn't told about that. That's a $1,500 surprise. And then there was some seeping by the lower radiator flange. So it looks like the radiator comes out off the lower tank, and it comes out to like a flange assembly, and then there's a steel flange bolted to it, and the hose attaches to that. And I couldn't tell exactly where the leak was, but it seems like that's where somewhere in that assembly it was leaking. And the only way you're going to know is if you take the front cowling off the bus and you take the radiator out, and that's a major, major, major ordeal. And this is the biggest radiator I've ever seen on one of these Bluebirds. I've looked at two or three of them. I've looked at a whole bunch of pictures. I mean, this radiator had to be 8 to 10 inches deep. It was enormous. I've never seen anything like this on a bus. It was the size of the radiator that would go on like a PD 4100 series bus. It was enormous, and you know, had it been in my driveway, yeah, okay, great. I'll tackle that. I've got an engine hoist. I've got friends. I can fabricate. I've got a mill. I've got a lathe. I have MIG, TIG, arc, stick. I mean, you name it. I have multi-process available. I can fully fabricate. On the backside of the moon in Steinhatchee, Florida, or Steinhatchee, however, it's German name, so it's Steinhatchee is how you pronounce it in German. And I'm sorry if they pronounce it Steinhatchee in Florida, but it says Steinhatchee if you pronounce it the way it's spelled. And the reality is, it might as well be on Mars. Okay, Tallahassee is an hour drive. There's some stuff in Perry, Florida. Perry, super friendly town, really, really nice town, but it's 45 minutes outside Perry, and Perry is 45 minutes outside Tallahassee. So I don't know how you get to Tallahassee in an hour, but that's what Waze said. And the reality is that it just was gonna be a major ordeal, and I don't really have a place to work on it there. There was covered storage available in Steinhatchee for about $160 a month. That was kind of the objective, was get the bus running, move it there. $160 a month. It's secure and stable. Nobody should bust out the windshields in storage. But and the parts are reasonably available. Randy Dupree, who runs Bye Bluebird and Wander Lodge Owners Group, is really only about 100 miles away by road. He's in Port St. Joe, and he had some used glass and a new windshield, and he can get the weather stripping. But you're $1,500, more or less. You're $1,500 in parts, and then you still got to put it in. So I have a real strong allergy to snowflakes, just because I've been burned by it on the Neoplan, and I was burned by it on the crown with the bus. The bolts were kind of a set of snowflakes. So the other issue that was going on was, the rear air conditioner was just kind of torn up. There was an awning in the picture for the listing, but the awning was not on the bus when I got there. And then, it was leaking. Oh, really? Where was it leaking? Do tell me this, because you didn't tell me anything about it leaking. I didn't see any sign of water damage on the inside. Again, it had a full tank of diesel. He said he put stuff in it before he parked it. But tires are shot. Like, they have to be changed. The one tire had dry rot so bad you could probably put half a nickel in it. I'm shocked it was holding air. I absolutely wouldn't trust that tire. And the front steers had hairline cracks everywhere. They were Michelin and BF Goodrich tires, so they're quality tires, but man, it's time for those tires to retire to whatever it is that retired tires do. Say that 12 times. And anyway, sorry, it's so tempting to say, what would a retired tire do if a retired tire retired? So, the issue is that you've got steel bolts in a copper or brass radiator tank, and they've been there forever. Whoever put it together bodged it. It's some kind of cardboard with RTV. It's a white RTV. It's seeping. That's a problem. That's where the water was going, because, when we looked at the radiator, there was no coolant in it. I'm like, where'd your water go? And I couldn't pull the dipstick to make sure it's not in the oil pan, because there's no effing dipstick, and I looked under the engine. I don't even see where the dipstick goes into the engine. I looked underneath the exhaust manifolds on both sides. I'm like, and then let's get to, there's got to be 15 pounds of nesting material on top of the engine. Now look, okay, I have a bunch of wildlife certifications, a bunch. Now, I've told NACOA to fly a kite in a storm because I don't want to do wildlife work anymore, but they're a good organization, and I learned a lot of really useful stuff from them, and I know better than to remove nesting material without wearing a respirator type dust mask and gloves and using a vacuum. It's and that's not a trivial amount of work to get all that out of there and make sure that the rodents didn't chew up the wires or the tubes or whatever. There's just no nice, that was another major ordeal. Now, on the bright side, the prime pump was holding prime. It hadn't lost prime. There was no Raycor filter on this unit. It had CAT filters on it, so somebody gave a shit about the bus. It was being properly maintained. It had spare filters in one of the closets. It's just too much work for me to put it back on the road from 800 miles away. It takes me a day and a half each way to get to that bus. And again, I didn't really have a place to work on it. And, it's forbidden to work on them in storage yards, so I don't have time to get kicked out of there and have to tow it. There was also the option of, there's some Wanderlust waypoints. They kind of specialize, they cater to the schoolie. It's a loose affiliate network that really works with schoolies. And they had a place that was 20 miles away, and I could have brought the bus there. But again, I'm 45 minutes outside of a small town that's 45 minutes outside of another small city. I'm in the middle of effing nowhere. It just makes the logistics really, really complicated. And I promise you, you're going to take that radiator out and you're going to find a half a dozen must-dos hiding behind that radiator, beyond the belts and the hoses that you can predict. And that's going to cost you half a week or you're going to pay through the nose if you go to Napa to get that shit. Because for whatever reason, Napa's not happy unless they got a 400% markup. And, it's a wonder there's still any of them left. So anyway, I just concluded that it was too much. The seller did offer to negotiate. I mean, he was, but I didn't want to, it wasn't about the price for me as it was the complexity and the scope. The scope was just way bigger. Had it been in Tyler, Texas, yeah, I'd have bought it. I think what he's asking for, it's fair. What he offered to sell it for was great. But again, to me, it's not about the price. It's about the scope of the work. And it's about what the scope that I don't know yet. And I've never owned a bus or a boat or a project car that the scope doesn't double and triple. So, for me, it just wasn't the right bus. And that's okay. It's just one of those things. So, I decided to pass on the bus. I thanked him for his time. I felt bad. I took up a little bit of his time yesterday, a little bit of his time this morning. I was also mildly annoyed that his landscapers decided to show up and weed whack and brush hog everything while I was trying to fucking look at the bus. I don't want to breathe a cloud of sand and have to watch that I don't get a rock or an object thrown at me by a mower that doesn't have a safety guard on it. But everything happens for a reason, and I really I'm confident in just saying that's not the right bus. So, walked away. I stayed at a little place called the Skylark Inn. No Wi-Fi. Kind of sketchy looking motor inn. Is a motor court hotel, but really, really nice people that run it. They're good people when they have a Chihuahua in the office, because Chihuahuas come in two flavors: the devil and the devil's tormentor. There are just no nice Chihuahuas if you're not the owner. But I think, realistically speaking, it just wasn't a big deal. And it was like $70 a night. I did not renew. I very intentionally left myself open this evening because I knew there was still a chance I was going to find something, and I didn't want to be locked into that bus. So there are some other buses I'm going to go look at. I'm headed to Ohio. Yes, I am absolutely fucking crazy because I drove from Houston to Perry, Florida, and I left Thursday night, overnighted in Slidell, got up Friday morning, drove from Slidell to Steinhatchee, to Perry, checked in, went and looked at this bus, went, okay, I'm still interested, went back the next morning, went, yeah, this is just not going to work. But I had another set of buses that I wanted to look at. This guy's got 4 of them. One is a parts bus. One is advertised 32, so it's either a 31 or 33. They didn't make a 32. A 35 and another 35. The nicest 35 I don't want anything to do with. I don't like the 87 nose. I think it looks bad. The other 2 I'm willing to look at. I think he wants too much for the 35, but I don't, and I think there's some water damage on the 35. So I'm going to go look at them. The worst case is I'm going to spend 3 days driving across country and waste a lot of time. So I've already texted with him today, and he's good with it, and I'll be there tomorrow. These videos are going to drop much after the fact. I don't want to muddy the water while I'm potentially negotiating to buy a bus. Last thing I need is a seller to see my videos and be like, oh, that guy's an asshole. Look, man, I'm going to call it like it is. If that's being an asshole, then that's being an asshole. But, at any rate, so I'm leaving Live Oak. I have 12 hours of driving in front of me. If I drove straight through, I'd get there at midnight. I'm planning to get into somewhere between Louisville and Louisville, Kentucky, and Cincinnati, Ohio tonight. So somewhere in that range is where I'll probably be like, fuck this, it's time for a shower in bed. I'm in Coprius. So if you don't know what Coprius is, that is my Copart Prius that I bought in January. It has performed fabulously. I'm getting like 41 miles to the gallon because I'm doing 75. I really should probably slow down, but yeah, whatever. I'm about to get on I-75, so we'll be with the big dogs again, and there's always somebody going faster than me. I like cruising at 75, 78. It's a great speed for this car, and you know, the Prius is absolutely not the most comfortable vehicle I've ever driven, but it's sufficient. And I've got a whole assload of shit in the back of it. I promise I did not have a 3-gallon shop vac on my bingo card for buying a bus, and I bought a shop vac last night to get all that fucking crap off this engine before I found the radiator leak. And if I hadn't found the radiator leak, I would have tried to start the bus up, and I probably would have bought the bus, but the radiator was just a bridge too far for me in addition to everything else. You know, having a radiator repaired is doable. It's still going to be a couple $1,000s. They're really expensive. But doing it there in Steinhatchee, Perry, wherever, BFE, Florida, you know, again, it's not that it can't be done. It's just a really hard project if you're not there full time. You know, in Houston, wouldn't have been a big deal. I know exactly who I would have taken it to in Houston. Picking that radiator up and taking it to, you know, taking it back to Houston, having it fixed. You know, it's possible, but god damn it, I want an easier project. I'm just gonna say it that way. And you know, it just is what it is. You know, so I'm definitely wanting a spring. Really would prefer a naturally aspirated bus. The turbo's nice, but it just isn't important to me. I'd rather go up a hill slow and know I don't have something to maintain. So, anyway, I hope that y'all are finding my trials and tribulations interesting. I normally don't expound about my thinking and what I'm actually like, you know, why I'm doing my projects. And so this is new. And anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and have a great day.